We can succeed and we can fail. There is nothing wrong with teaching them whatever is available, because they will get it. They will get, either you tell them or they will get it in the internet. But if you teach them in the classroom and tell them this is the French contribution to civilization, the French of Russian to civilization, the contribution of Arab civilization, that's fine, in my opinion. So it goes, because it's a human effort. You see, we have to look at the whole universe, and the order is given not to Muslims, the order is given to mankind. See what I mean? So everybody has the right to say what he wants, and we have the mind to discriminate. So this is a good idea. My brother was talking about the development, the brain's differences. You can ask them, challenge them actually with questions. And it's a good idea, since you opened the topic, it's a good idea to give the kids what I call the impossible question. The impossible question makes their head goes around, 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 until they know that indeed Allah is in charge. For example, about the honey, the honeybee and the honey. We say, okay, the honeybee go visit the flowers, collect the nectar, and then give us honey. And then you surprise the kids. Can anybody in the world take the honey and bring it back to the flowers? See what I mean? Can anybody do this? Can any science do this? Can anybody reverse the process? And leave them with us to think about the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just like in the Quran. Sayyidina Ibrahim, Prophet Ibrahim was talking about إن الله يأتي بشمس من المشرق فأتي بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر. Islam should be taught from a point of strength. We're not weak. We should teach them from point of strength. Second point, brother.
I just say a comment for your...
Sure, definitely. Yes, definitely.
We can also use different approaches, that the specializations of the organisms. That if can we take the nectars from the flowers and produce honey? We cannot do that, because these bees are adapted, and they are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates them to do this job, which is not available for other organisms. The second part is mainly related to science, and especially for the part we know that we have all the time difficulties when we teach it, the evolutions. And the problem is that even for the non-Muslim, by the way, I taught for the non-Muslim, and they said also the same. Some schools, they totally prohibited to teach evolutions or Darwinism or Darwin theory. Because most of once we start this section or this chapter, usually, the first thing came from the students, this is haram. Because they may hear it from their parents or from other media that the origin of man is a monkeys, which is actually, if you look at the theory of Darwinism, which is not exactly correct. So how can we use some of your system, your model, to change this idea about evolutions and the Quranic or the Islamic backgrounds?
Now, in order to have, subhanAllah, the word evolution itself, it had the secret of destroying itself, destroying the theory. Because in order to have things evolving, you have to have evidence of evolution. For example, they say man was a monkey or came from an ape. Do we have the proof of this? Do we have fossils that show this? We don't. In order to change one species from one thing to another, we should have intermediate forms that leads to from A to B. You should have another creature that's more A than B. You see? And then half and half. And then less B than A, and so on. But we don't have this. Even Harun Yahya was talking about this, that it doesn't exist. And the theory itself is, you can collapse it by using your mind. That's why we would like the kids to learn in Muslim schools. Know Allah, not by memorization, but through your head, through your mind. Allah. I think Sister Magda will have a question, inshallah. Sister Magda. And we'll go inshallah to you.
They always call me trouble because I'm gonna I teach evolution in biology, but I teach it from a different viewpoint. I take the actual vocabulary of the word evolution, which is to evolve, which is just change over time. And the only way I teach it differently is that we do evolve within a species. We just don't evolve from one species to another. And I think that they have to understand that, because if we don't evolve, we're not growing. And if we're not growing, then we've died. And I think from that viewpoint, then we start teaching Darwin's theory, which most people have rejected at this point anyway. And we teach how, as human beings and Muslims, we evolve as creatures, or other species evolve within their same species, but don't change from one to another.
So evolution does occur within the same species, but species don't cross over each other to develop. We cannot have a man from an ape, but there will be changes in the apes, and there will be changes in people. So that's well done. As Dr. Jamal Badawi said, you tell the kids at the end, people have the right to select their own grandparents. If you want to have your grandparents to be monkeys, that's all it needs.
I would like to thank you, Jazakallah Khairan, for this workshop. And my question is that we can use the ayat and the hadith of the Prophet if we don't have enough to elaborate on, especially in Islamic study. And like in my lesson plan, giving the students to work on companions of the Prophet, taking them as role model. It's not mentioned specifically in one ayah in the Quran, but I can elaborate on of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, since it's an inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and tell them that the Prophet ﷺ told us, أصحابي كالنجوم بأيهم اقتديتم اهتديتم, that will lead them to follow the example of the Prophet ﷺ and his companions too. Just like we can incorporate hadith and Quran together as our ayat to start with, if we can find one specific ayah to relate to. Actually, no, we can add we can use the hadith to elaborate more on the ayah if we don't have specifics of the ayah, or if it's not really related directly, immediately, specifically to the subject. The hadith explain it more, and the hadith is like our second source of Islamic law that we can use, and we can use in our teaching too.
I totally agree about having hadith to support the ayah, to give more knowledge. That's fine. And I answer this from 2 points from the Quran. One of them is, I don't remember the exact surah, but say that وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ أيوة. الآية, does anybody know the ayah?
You said it right.
وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. This is one. And the second one is وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِي أَمْرٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَإِلَى الرَّسُولِ. The hadith, I mean, it is, we don't have to talk about it. The hadith is our source, and we can use it as supporting to the presentation. As a matter of fact, I used it when I was talking about physical education. When you say, إِنَّ لِبَدَنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا, this part of Rasul. Sure, the kids should gather in a circle and begin the physical education lesson, and they make a little song of some sort, their own song. A lot of meetings in the churches and around the world, they start by standard way of starting. They read a page of something. They can do the same thing here. They don't have to do it every class, but they do it sometimes to keep them connected to the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we study everything according to Surah Yunus 101. Thank you, sister. That's a good point. As a matter of fact, you opened up a new field. Look at the hadith now. Now we're trying to get the Quran. Now look at the hadith. So we need, the brother said, this is not my work. This is everybody's work. I want you, inshallah, to try it out. And when you try it out, send me a file, and I'll post it on the website. And your name, fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you can produce one lesson every month, it would be great. You know what I mean? Send it to me, I'll post it.